Hello, how are you all? How are my little twinkly-eyed ones? Lovely to see you all. Wow. So let's have some fun and listen to a story. Maybe you haven't heard it before. Its name is Simple Simon Goes to Camp. And it is by Enid Blyton. Now this is for the little ones, and later I'm going to read the other story and that another short story which would be for the older age group, right? So both back to back. Let's see. You can always listen to the other one, which would be fun. Okay, Simple Simon Goes to Camp. Have you heard the story about Simple Simon going to camp? You haven't. Well, I must tell it to you. Now, Simple Simon had never been away from home, but one day his school teacher asked him if he would like to go to camp with the other boys. "It would do you good, Simon," he said. "You are too dreamy and forgetful. You asked your mother if she'll let you come along with us and camp out on Breezy Hill." Simon ran home to ask his mother. He was terribly excited. All the other boys had been to camp, but not Simon. Okay, his mother said yes, he could go, and Simon was mad with delight. "I'll be so helpful," he said. "I'll do everything I'm told. I'll learn how to put up a tent and take one down. I'll do the washing up. I'll do anything." See, I'm sure you can relate to it when you're excited about going somewhere for a summer holiday or for a trip, for an overnight party, or to your cousins for a sleepover, whatever. You get excited, or to a birthday party or a game. So that's how you feel. Well, Simon went to camp with the other boys. He had his kit bag on his back, full of the things he would need. It was heavy, but he didn't mind. The other boys grinned when they saw Simple Simon coming with them. "Hello, Simple Simon," they said. "Have you met your pieman yet?" That was an old joke, and Simon smiled. He was so excited that he didn't mind anything. He went with the others to Breezy Hill. It was a good name for it because the wind blew there all the time. Simon learned how to put up a tent, but he didn't learn it very well because it always fell down on top of him as soon as he got inside. There you can see the back of his shoes, and as soon as he steps into the camp, it comes together and falls on him. Isn't that funny? Because this is the first time he's doing it. So the camp always fell down on him as soon as he got inside. He learned how to wash dirty cups and plates in the clear little stream. How pretty. But after he had fallen in twice, he wasn't allowed to do that anymore. Then he was told to go and fetch the milk, and he was given a big jug. So off went Simon. But after a bit, when he got into the next field, he stood and thought, what am I supposed to do? Where do I get the thing? There he is in the middle of the field, standing at a loose end, doesn't know what to do, right? Okay. "I didn't ask where I was to get the milk from," he said to himself. "How stupid! The boys will all laugh at me if I go back and ask. I wonder where Jimmy got the milk from yesterday." "Oh," said a nearby cow, and looked so hard at Simon that he felt sure she was answering him. "Oh, of course, milk comes from cows," said Simon. "I must milk a cow. "Hi, you cow, come over here a minute, will you?" Now he's talking to the cow. That's a funny situation. I can see the laughter and the smiles, beaming smiles on your face. It's a fun story, isn't it so far? He waved his jack at the cow, but she turned her head away and went on chewing. She was lying down and she didn't mean to get up for Simon. "Now look here, cow," said Simon, going up to her. "You know what this milk jug's for, don't you? Don't pretend to me that you don't know what milk is. Just get up and fill this jug for me. Do you want to keep the boys waiting for their breakfast?" See, he's still talking and speaking to the cow. What a funny little fellow he is. And look at the cow. Obviously, she doesn't know what he's saying. The cow didn't mind about that at all. She whisked her tail round and hit Simon on the legs. "Don't," said Simon. "Aren't you going to get up, cow? I'll help you." He gave her a push, but she lay there like an elephant. "Hello, Tehreem. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining in." He gave her a push like I told you, but she lay like an elephant, quite unpushable. Simon glared at her, like this, for a minute and then heard someone calling over the hedge. "Simon, bring the milk quickly, we are waiting." Simon ran to the hedge. "The cow won't give me any. She's most obstinate." Do you know what obstinate is? Stubborn. Yes. "Idiot, you get the milk at the farm," said the boy over the hedge. "Don't tell me you have been arguing with the cow. Here, give me the jug. I'll go." Okay. He squeezed through the hedge, snatched the jug from poor Simon and set off to the farm. And how Simon was teased when the other boys knew he had asked the cow to fill the milk jug. "Well, we shan't ask you to do any more jobs," they said. "Not another single errand." "Simon, you never use your brains. You're so slow for words." Poor Simon. He was very upset. It was quite true he didn't think hard enough. His mother was always telling him so. Nobody asked him to help after that. Even when he offered, he wasn't allowed to. It wasn't any fun to go camping and not share in the work. Poor Simon felt very unhappy. "Please let me help," he begged Jimmy when he saw him preparing the dinner for the boys. "Can't I peel the potatoes?" There he is, begging Jimmy. Can you see in the picture who's cutting and peeling the veggies? "No, last time you did that, you left half the peel on," said Jimmy. "Go away, I'm making a stew and I want it to be good." "What are you putting into it?" asked Simon. "Carrots, onions, parsnips, turnips," said Jimmy. "Look, I have not got the turnips." "Let me get them for you, said Simon at once. "You don't know a turnip from a banana," said Jimmy scornfully. I do, said Simon. "They grow in the field over there, don't they?" "Yes," said Jimmy, "and the farmer said we might pull what we wanted." "Well, you go and bring me some, Simon, and don't you dare come back with onions or carrots. It's turnips I want. See?" Simon set off. He came back after a moment, thinking hard. "How many do you want?" he asked. 20? "No, silly. 3 will do nicely," said Jimmy, beginning to peel potatoes. "Now do go." Simon went, but he was back again in half a minute. "You didn't tell me." "Now what? What size?" he said. "Do you want big ones or small ones?" "Big ones," said Jimmy, getting annoyed. "How big?" asked Simon. "Oh, just about as big as your head," said Jimmy. "Now go, Simon, or you'll not get the turnips till tea time." Simon went. He climbed over the stile and got into the turnip field. He looked at the turnips. They were in their hundreds, the root part well in the ground, and green leaves sticking up in depth. Here he is excitedly crossing the stile. Can you see it? I wonder how big my head is, said Simon to himself, and he felt it to see. How could I possibly tell if those turnips are as big as my head? I can't see my head, and I really don't know how big it is. He didn't like to go back and ask what size his head was. Do you think he's smart or he's silly? Or is he simple? He's simple. That's why he's called Simple Simon. He felt that Jimmy would be very cross if he did, and yet how cross he would be if he brought back turnips too big or too small. It was a puzzle to know what to do. I must use my brains, said Simple Simon to himself. I must think hard. I must think hard. There must be some way of knowing which turnips are as big as my head. Now, what shall I do? Okay. He thought very hard indeed. Then he smiled, because he had thought of a way to solve his puzzle. My hat fits my head, he said, and he took it off. Now, if only I can find 3 turnips that fit my hat, but I shall know they are the same size as my head. Isn't that funny? Oh boy. You don't exactly measure turnips or potatoes or tomatoes when you're buying them. Does your mom do? No, we don't have to. Just a fair idea. He pulled up a turnip. He turned it upside down and fitted his hat over it. Then he threw the turnip away. You're too small, turnip, he said. My hat doesn't fit you. I'll get another. He pulled up another turnip, an enormous one, and fitted his hat over it, but it wouldn't go on. See, the turnips, tons of turnips, all size, so healthy, beautiful, fresh. What fun! But he didn't know anything about it. And when he fitted his hat over it, it wouldn't go on top of the big turnip. You're too large, turnip, he said, and threw it away. You're bigger than my head, you won't do. He tried another, but that was too big too. Then he found one that exactly fitted his head. How pleased he was that it fitted his hat. Good turnip, he said, and he patted it. Very good turnip, you're the same size as my head, because my hat fits you, as if it was in the hands of the turnip, was it? No. He pulled up another and another and another and another, but none of them fitted the hat, so he threw them away, like you saw in the picture. Right. After a long time, he found 2 more that his hat fitted nicely. He put the 3 turnips under his arm and his hat on his head and set off back to the camp in a very excited manner. Jimmy was beginning to think Simon was never coming. Gosh, what a time you have been, he said. And Simon was disappointed that Jimmy didn't notice that turnips were exactly the same size as his head. Oh God. A silly thing to think. Simon felt pleased with himself as he sat round the camp dinner with the others. I fetched the turnips, he told everyone. I really did help, and I didn't do anything silly because I used my brains. Now, about a minute after that, a big man came striding up to the camp. It was Mr. Straw, the farmer. He looked most annoyed. Afternoon, sir, he said to Simon's school teacher, who was camping with the boys. I want to know who's been pulling up half my turnips and left them lying in the field. There's the Mr. Farmer. Can you see him? There he is. Yes. See how grumpy and annoyed he is with big mustaches. Good gracious, it could be any of my boys, said the master, surprised. They're all very well behaved. Sorry, sir, but it must be one of your boys, said the farmer. And what I want to know is, who is it? I tell you, it can't be one of my boys, said the master. They wouldn't do a thing like that, pull up turnips and let them go to waste. Oh, and then he suddenly caught sight of Simon, who had gone as red as a beetroot. And what's a beetroot? It's a red vegetable. Yes, Chakantar. And it's a very healthy thing. And it has a beautiful violet red color. Simon, you haven't done such a naughty thing, have you? The teacher asked sternly. Oh, sir, Jimmy sent me to get 3 turnips the size of my head. And I don't know what size my head was, so I took off my hat and chose 3 turnips that fitted into it and threw the rest away. There was a silence, and then there was a roar of laughter by the boys. It was too funny to think of Simon solemnly trying his hat on one turnip after another. Can you imagine? Isn't that funny? It is, right? Thank you. Even the farmer smiled. He couldn't control his laughter. What a funny thing to do. Well, I suppose he meant no harm, but it was a brainless thing to do. Silly thing to do, he said. And that upset Simon very much, because he really had thought he was using his brains out in the turnip field. I'll have to ask you to let the boy come along and pick up all the turnips, sir, and bring them to my shed. Otherwise they'll rot away and my crop will waste away. So that was how poor Simon spent the whole of his afternoon picking up turnips and taking them half a mile away to the shed. And now Jimmy thinks he'll send him to pull new carrots as big as his fingers, and everyone is wondering if dear old Simon will take his gloves along to see which carrots fit into the fingers. Do you think he will? Will he take his gloves? Oh, so how did you like the story? Yes, right? It was funny, it was fun. I loved it. It's so cute and it's so much fun and gave me such laughters. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the story. Send me your suggestions, your ideas and your comments and your feedback. How much you like the story. I'll be waiting for your messages. Don't forget. Bye-bye. Now, you can keep sitting, younger ones, and listen to this story of the grown-ups. All right, of the older children. So this story is by Graham Greene. I'm sure you must have heard or read in your syllabus some short story by him. Yeah, he's a great writer. He wrote poems and he wrote novels. Now the name of the story is The Invisible Japanese Gentleman by Graham Greene. So let's begin. There were 8 Japanese gentlemen having a fish dinner at Bentley's. That's a restaurant. They spoke to each other really in the incomprehensible tongue. Obviously, it was incomprehensible because they could not, the narrator or the author could not understand the Japanese. but always with a courteous smile and often with a small bow. All but one of them wore glasses. Sometimes the pretty girl who sat in the window beyond gave them a passing glance, but her own problems seemed too serious for her to pay real attention to anyone in the world except herself and her companion. She had thin blonde hair and her face was pretty and petite in a regency way. Regency way means in a royal way, right? Like princess, oval like a miniature. Though she had a harsh way of speaking, perhaps the accent of the school, Rodian or Cheltenham Ladies' College, which she had not long ago left, so she was fairly young. She wore a man's signet ring on her engagement ring finger, so she was engaged. And as I sat down at my table with the Japanese gentleman between us, she said, "So you see, we could marry next week." Yes. Her companion appeared a little distraught. He refilled their glasses with Chablis and said, "Of course, but mother, I missed some of the conversation then because the eldest Japanese gentleman who was sitting in between leant across the table with a smile and a little bow and uttered a whole paragraph like the mutter from an aviary, while everyone bent towards him and smiled and listened. I couldn't help attending to him myself. The girl's fiancé resembled her physically. I could see them as two miniatures hanging side by side on white wood panels. So this is the narrator's imagination. He should have been a young officer in Nelson's Navy in the days when a certain weakness and sensitivity were no bar to promotion. Now he thinks he could be one of the officer, but he had a very delicate structure, and he seemed like a very sensitive kind of a man because he had such strong expressions. So he thought probably in those days when these officers could still be promoted if they were not physically strong. Right. She said, "They are giving me an advance of £500 and they have sold the paperback rights already." The hard commercial declaration came as a shock to me. It was a shock too that she was one of my own profession. Obviously he's a narrator, he's the writer, author, and she also claims to be a writer of a book. She couldn't have been more than 20. She deserved better life. He said, "But my uncle, you know you don't get on with him. This way we shall be quite independent." "You will be independent," the fiancé said grudgingly. "The wine trade wouldn't really suit you, would it? I spoke to my publisher about you, and there's a very good chance if you began with some reading." Now she seems a little naive, isn't it? You just can't start writing by just reading some books. "But I don't know a thing about books. I would help you at the start. My mother says that writing is a good crutch, could be an extra sport. £500 and half the paperback rights is a pretty solid crutch," she said. "This Chablis is good, isn't it?" He tried to change the topic. I dare say I began to change my opinion of him. He had not the mensal touch. He was doomed to defeat. She came alongside and raked him fore and aft, questioned him and kind of gave critical comments. "Do you know what Mr. Dwight said?" "Who's Dwight?" "Darling, you don't listen, do you? My publisher. He said he hadn't read a first novel in the last 10 years, which showed such powers of observation." Oh my God. Do you get it? That he would publish novels without even opening them, just by looking at the author. So looks mattered more. That's wonderful, he said sadly. Wonderful. Only he wants me to change the title. Yes. He doesn't like the ever-rolling stream. He wants to call it the Chelsea set. What did you say? I agreed. I do think that with the first novel, one should try to keep one's publisher happy, especially when really he's going to pay for a marriage, isn't he? I see what you mean. Absent-mindedly, he stirred his chapelet with a fork. Perhaps before the engagement, he had always bought champagne, so he's a bit absent-minded and a little disturbed. The Japanese gentlemen had finished their fish, and with very little English, but with elaborate courtesy, they were ordering from the middle-aged waitress a fresh fruit salad. The girl looked at them, and then she looked at me, but I think she saw only the future. I wanted very much to warn her against any future based on first novel called The Chelsea Set. I was on the side of his mother, the fiance's mother, who said it could be an extra sport, a crutch. It was a humiliating thought, but I was probably about her mother's age. I wanted to say to her, are you certain your publisher is telling you the truth? Publishers are human. That means they can make mistakes. They may sometimes exaggerate the virtues of the young and pretty. Will the Chelsea set be read in 5 years? Are you prepared for the years of effort, the long defeat of doing nothing well? As the years pass, writing will not become any easier. The daily effort will grow harder to endure. Those powers of observation which she claims the publisher had, will become enfeebled, will become weaker, and you will be judged when you reach your 40s by performance and not by promise. And then he heard her talking to her fiancé. My next novel is going to be about Saint-Tropez. I didn't know you had ever been there. I haven't. A fresh ice, terribly important. I thought we might settle down there for 6 months. There wouldn't be much left of the advance by that time. The advance is only an advance. I get 15% after 5,000 copies and 20% after 10. And of course another advance will be due, darling, when the next book's finished. A bigger one if the Chelsea set sells well. Suppose it doesn't. Mr. Dwight says it will. He ought to know, he's a publisher. My uncle would start me at 1,200. But darling, how could you come then to Saint-Tropez? Perhaps we better marry when you come back. She said harshly, I might not come back if the Chelsea set sells enough. Oh, she looked at me and the party of Japanese gentlemen. She finished her wine. She said, is this a quarrel? No. I've got the title for the next book, The Azure Blue. I thought azure was blue. She looked at him with disappointment. You don't really want to be married to a novelist, do you? You aren't one yet. I was born one, Mr. Dwight says. My powers of observation. Yes, you told me that, my dear. Couldn't you observe a bit nearer home, here in London? I've done that in the Chelsea set. I don't want to repeat myself. The bill had been lying beside them for some time now. He took out his wallets to pay, but she snatched the paper out of his reach. She said, this is my celebration. What of? He said. The Chelsea set, of course. Darling, you're awfully decorative, but sometimes, well, simply you don't connect. I'd rather, if you don't mind. No, darling, this is on me and Mr. Dwight, of course. He submitted just as two of the Japanese gentlemen gave tongue simultaneously. then stopped abruptly and bowed to each other as though they were blocked in a doorway. I thought the two young people matching miniatures, but what a contrast in fact there was. The same type of prettiness could contain weakness and strength. Her regency counterpart, I suppose, would have borne a dozen children without the aid of anesthetics, while he would have fallen an easy victim to the first dark eyes in Naples. Would there one day be a dozen books on a shelf? They have to be born without an anesthetic too. That's a very painful, difficult journey, writing. I found myself hoping that the Chelsea set would prove to be a disaster and that eventually she would take up photographic modeling while he established himself solidly in the wine trade in St. James. I didn't like to think of her as the Mrs. Humphrey Ward of a generation. Not that I would live so long. Old age saves us from the realization of a great many fears. True. I wondered to which publishing firm Dwight belonged. I could imagine the blurb he would have already written about her abrasive powers of observation. There would be a photo, if he was wise, on the back of the jacket, the back of the cover of the book. For reviewers as well as publishers are human, and she didn't look like Mrs. Humphrey Ward. She was a very pretty girl. I could hear them talking while they found the coats at the back of the restaurant. He said, "I wonder what all those Japanese are doing here." She said, "Japanese?" She said, "What Japanese, darling? Sometimes you're so evasive. I think you don't want to marry me at all." Isn't that ironic? She claims to be very observant, a sharp observer, and that's what the publisher told her. And she wants to move to a city just for 6 months, though they don't have enough funds and her fiancé is not working, so that she can observe. But she didn't observe the 9 gentlemen, or how many were they? The invisible Japanese gentlemen. They were invisible for her. It's ironic. She's claiming claims that she has very sharp and fantastic sense of observation, which she actually does not, because she's wrought in her thoughts, right? And she's daydreaming. Yes, why not? You dream big, you get so far. That's very true. But you see the hope and then the naivety and what it is not easy. Once you choose a profession, it can be very arduous and very hard. You have to keep at it and work hard no matter what. And still the world continues to be fake, going for looks and appearances and glamour. Do you agree with me? Should we? So I leave that question with you, my grown-up students and children, my bright set of kids, teenagers, and let me know what you think about it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this short story by Graham Greene. I loved it. I hope you did too. Lovely to see you. Bye-bye. Thank you.